everyone, today I'll be reviewing this movie. It is kind of like a horror like slash psychological thriller. This movie, it is called The Night House, and it is starring Rebecca Hall, and this movie is directed by David Beckham, and this movie came out in 2021, around that time, during the pandemic time. This movie came out, but I remember this movie got a lot of good review from all the critics. They really liked this movie, sitting quite high on Rotten Tomatoes score, but as you can see, the audience score for this movie is quite low if you compare with the critic score. So I personally thought this movie, like as a movie, it is quite engaging, especially Rebecca Hall. She plays this character Beth. She is so the minute you meet this character Beth, she is like so sympathetic character. When you hear her story, you immediately feel for her, and you want her to be okay. And in this movie you see Beth, she is dealing with this horrible loss. Like recently her husband, we see he passed away, or not passed away, I guess he killed himself in this movie. He shot to himself like with the gun in his mouth. So after you hear this tragic, like you are like, whoa, you really want her to be okay. So in this movie, you see the Beth, she's experienced all this thing, and she start wondering what happened to her husband. Why did he kill himself? Then she start investigate through his stuff, like what was he doing. When I say she start investigate, she doesn't actually like immediately do that. The reason for to do all this investigate, because she start experience all this thing, all this supernatural presence in her house. And then we see she is like, through her dream, she find out all this thing about her husband Owen in this movie, and slowly we learn like what happened to him. So here is the thing about this movie. I think this movie actually quite it's really engaging, and it's definitely very well directed, especially brilliantly acted by Rebecca Hall. She's so good in this movie. I was like, she's such a good actress. Like when you see this movie, you see like the range she brought in this movie. Because of her, this movie, it is so engaging. Although this movie, throughout this movie, try to create this atmosphere for its audience, like as the audience, like I personally, like I'm one of these people, I didn't thought this movie was like a psychological thriller to me. Like I felt like it was like a horror thriller. Like I that's what I'm standing. But I see a lot of people think it is a psychological thriller. But I'm like, why is she having all this dream if it wasn't supernatural? So I took that, like if you watch this movie, if your takeaway from this movie, it will be different than other people. That is why I think the audience review for this movie is so divisive, because everybody will watch this and they will think different way. However, I will say about this movie, first and middle act is quite engaging. It's really good. However, once we head toward the mystery, once it starts revealing and what happened to Owen and all this mystery around third act, this movie really is like, I feel like it didn't explain that much, because as I was saying, this movie really tried so hard to create this dilemma for the audience, like it is a psychological thriller or it is a horror thriller, that when you go to the end, you are like, like the ending was really quick, didn't explain that much, because this kind of director, I think they try to leave it open for the audience to decide what do you think the ending. I will still, like as I was saying, I took it as a supernatural, so I felt like, yeah, this movie, it is all about the death, I buy that theory that so it's a spoiler, I guess. So I personally thought, yeah, the death was after Beth, and I believe that. Although a lot of people saying like, oh, she went through this mental trauma or anything like that. I don't know if this was like how she was finding out all the mystery about him. Like, yeah, I know this movie tried to make people confused, but I think it's still, no matter what I think about, overall, the truth is this movie is actually quite engaging all the way till the end. Of course, the way it's left open, the ending, like the death is just sitting there waiting for her. Like what happened to her? Is she dead or she is still alive? And why the death didn't come after her again? Yeah, this movie's ending is a little bit like, once again, It's not as good as it could have been, but it's not bad. Overall, this movie is actually, it is quite entertaining movie, especially if you think about it. It is a horror psychological thriller movie. It is quite entertaining and it's definitely worth checking if you have Hulu. And that's my thought on this. Let me know in the comment, what do you think about this movie? If you enjoyed this review, don't share other reviews on other movies. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Until I see you next time, please take care.